Picture this: a dusty street in Ouagadougou, the heart of Burkina Faso, where a woman, clutching her child, drops to her knees in front of a man who's become a living legend, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The crowd holds its breath. What could drive someone to such a raw, emotional act? Was it desperation, gratitude, or something deeper, tied to the wildfire of hope and controversy this young leader ignites across Africa? Buckle up, because this viral moment isn't just a fleeting clip, it's a window into a saga of power, passion, and a nation at a crossroads. Why did she kneel, and what did Traoré do next? Let's dive into a story that's got the world buzzing. A woman and child kneel before Traoré. Let's paint the picture. A sun-baked street in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's vibrant capital, buzzing with the rhythm of motorbikes and market chatter. Out of nowhere, the crowd parts, and a woman, gripping her young child tightly, falls to her knees before Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the country's firebrand leader. Her face is streaked with tears, her voice a shaky whisper lost in the hum of onlookers. The child, barely old enough to understand, clings to her, eyes wide with confusion. Traoré, in his trademark red beret and military gear, stands frozen for a split second, his expression caught between steel and something softer. Phones are out, capturing every heartbeat of this raw, electric moment. Within hours, the clip is everywhere. X, TikTok, you name it, igniting a firestorm of reactions. But what sparked this? Why did she kneel? And what was Traoré about to do next? This wasn't just a random encounter. It felt like a scene ripped from a movie, except it was painfully real. The woman's gesture, kneeling with her child, carries weight in a place like Burkina Faso, where respect, desperation, and hope often collide in public displays. Was she begging for help in a country battered by violence and displacement? Was she honoring a leader many see as a beacon of change? Or was it something else entirely, a personal story we'll never fully know? The video doesn't give us her words, only her tears and the weight of her body hitting the ground. Traoré, towering above her, doesn't flinch, but his eyes betray a flicker of emotion. This moment, fleeting as it was, becomes a lightning bolt, splitting opinions and sparking endless debates about what it all means. What makes this scene so gripping isn't just the act itself, but the man at its center. Ibrahim Traoré, the 34-year-old coup leader who stormed into power in 2022, isn't your typical politician. He's a soldier, a self-styled revolutionary, and for many, a modern-day Che Guevara with an African heartbeat. To his fans, he's the guy kicking out French troops and promising to wrestle Burkina Faso's destiny back from foreign hands. To his critics, he's a reckless strongman, cozying up to Russia and failing to tame the jihadist insurgency, tearing the country apart. So when a woman and her child kneel before him, it's not just about them. It's about Traoré's larger-than-life shadow and a nation hanging on his every move. This moment is our launch pad, the spark that sets the stage for a deeper dive into why this scene hit so hard and what it reveals about Burkina Faso's soul. The woman's story, a glimpse into her world. Let's zoom in on the woman at the heart of this moment, even though her name remains a mystery, swallowed by the viral churn of the internet. Imagine her life, a mother in Ouagadougou, navigating a city where the air hums with tension and resilience. Burkina Faso's been a battleground, with jihadist attacks pushing families like hers from rural villages into overcrowded urban slums. Maybe she's one of the millions displaced, her home reduced to memories, her days spent scraping by to feed her child. The kid in her arms, no older than 5, is her anchor, her reason to keep going despite the hunger, the fear, the uncertainty. On this day, she's in the crowd, maybe by chance, maybe drawn by whispers that Traoré, the captain, would pass through. She sees him, this young leader who's all over the radio, promising to fix a broken country. To her, he's not just a face on a poster. He's a symbol of something bigger, hope maybe, or defiance against the chaos swallowing her world. Her heart races as she pushes through the crowd, her child's small hand gripping hers. Then, in a split-second decision, she drops to her knees. It's not planned, not rehearsed. It's a gut punch of emotion spilling out, gratitude for Traoré's promises, a plea for help, or maybe just a cry for someone to see her struggle. The crowd gasps, and she feels the weight of their stares, but her eyes are locked on Traoré. For a moment, it's just them, a mother, her child, and the man carrying a nation's dreams. Traoré's reaction. The man behind the myth. Now let's shift to Traoré, standing there as this woman lays her soul bare. He's no stranger to crowds or adoration. Since his coup, he's been mobbed by supporters chanting his name, hailing him as Burkina Faso's savior. But this is different. It's not a roaring rally or a scripted speech. It's a single mother and her child, vulnerable and raw, kneeling at his feet. His face, usually a mask of resolve, softens just enough to hint at the man beneath the military bravado. He steps forward, his boots scuffing the dusty ground, and extends a hand, not to lift her up right away, but to acknowledge her. His voice, low and steady, cuts through the crowd's murmurs, though the shaky phone footage doesn't catch his exact words. Some in the crowd later swear he said, "Stand, sister, we're in this together," while others claim he promised to help her directly, his words drowned by the chaos. What's clear is that he doesn't bask in the moment or milk it for clout. Instead, he gestures for her to rise, his hand steadying her as she stands, child still clinging to her side. It's a quiet act, almost lost in the frenzy of the crowd, but it's enough to send ripples through those watching. For a man often painted as a firebrand, this glimpse of compassion, or at least calculated restraint, adds fuel to the mythos surrounding him. Was he genuinely moved, or was this a leader playing his part in a country desperate for heroes? Either way, the exchange lingers, a fleeting connection that feels seismic. The crowd's pulse, a nation. Watching the people around them are no mere backdrop. They're the heartbeat of this story. The crowd is a mix of young men in faded t-shirts, women balancing baskets on their heads, and kids darting through the chaos, all drawn by the magnetic pull of Traoré's presence. When the woman kneels, their reactions are a kaleidoscope of awe, empathy, and agitation. Some cheer, seeing her act as a tribute to their leader's vision. Others whisper, wondering if her desperation mirrors their own struggles, skyrocketing food prices, schools shuttered by violence, homes lost to conflict. A few older men in the back shake their heads, muttering about showmanship in a country that needs more than gestures. As Traoré helps her stand, the crowd surges, phones held high, capturing every angle. Some shout his name, others call out blessings, and a few start chanting slogans from his speeches. Sovereignty or death. The energy is electric, teetering between adoration and unrest. This moment isn't just about the woman or Traoré. It's about a nation watching, projecting its hopes and frustrations onto a single sunlit street. For some, the woman's kneeling is a spark of unity. For others, it's a stark reminder of how far Burkina Faso still has to go. As the crowd disperses, the story is already spreading, carried by voices, videos, and a shared sense that something unforgettable just happened. The aftermath. A moment that won't fade. As the dust settles on that Ouagadougou street, the woman and her child melt back into the crowd, their silhouettes fading as quickly as they appeared. But the moment they created lingers like an echo, refusing to die. By nightfall, the video is everywhere, shared, retweeted, stitched into TikToks with swelling music and captions calling it the heart of Burkina Faso. People who weren't there start piecing together their own versions of the story. The woman becomes a symbol, a mother's courage, a citizen's plea, a mirror for a nation's soul. But what happens after the phones stop recording? The crowd scatters, but the weight of that kneeling stays heavy, sparking whispers and arguments in markets, homes, and tea shops across the city. For the woman, the aftermath is quieter, but no less intense. Imagine her walking home, her child's hand in hers, the adrenaline of the moment replaced by the grind of reality. Maybe she's replaying Traore's words in her head, his hand on her arm, that brief flicker of connection. Did she feel seen, even for a second? Or does she wonder if her act, so raw and public, will change anything for her and her kid? The streets she navigates are the same, vendors hawking yams, kids kicking deflated soccer balls, the distant wail of a siren. Yet something's shifted. Neighbors recognize her from the video, some offering nods of respect, others prying with questions she's too tired to answer. Her story, once private, now belongs to the world. Traore's next move, a leader under scrutiny. For Ibrahim Traoré, the moment doesn't end when the crowd disperses. He's back in his convoy, the red beret tilted just so, but the image of that woman and child sticks with him. Or so his supporters claim. In the days that follow, his team knows the video's a goldmine, a chance to show the captain as a man of the people. But Traoré, ever the enigma, doesn't lean into the spotlight the way you'd expect. There's no immediate speech milking the moment, no staged follow-up where he visits her home with cameras in tow. Instead, rumors swirl that he's tasked aides with finding her, ensuring she gets help, food, money, maybe a safer place to live. Whether it's true or just savvy PR, no one can confirm, but the story spreads like wildfire. The lack of a public stunt doesn't mean Traoré ignores the moment's power. At a rally a few days later, he speaks to a roaring crowd, his voice sharp and defiant. He doesn't mention the woman directly, but his words feel aimed at her. Every mother, every child is why we fight. No one kneels in vain. The crowd erupts, waving flags and chanting his name, but not everyone's sold. In private, some of his advisors worry the video could backfire. Critics are already calling it proof of desperation under his rule, a sign that people are so broken they're literally begging in the streets. Traoré, unfazed, keeps his focus on the bigger picture, rallying a nation, even as the world watches his every move. The ripple effect. Voices from the streets. Back in Ouagadougou's neighborhoods, the moment takes on a life of its own. In a crowded barber shop, men debate over buzzing clippers. A young guy with a faded Sankara t-shirt says the woman's kneel was a salute to Traoré's guts, his push to break free from France's shadow. An older woman sweeping the floor disagrees, her voice sharp. She knelt because she's hungry, not because he's a hero. Down the street, a group of students huddle over a shared phone, watching the clip again, arguing if it's hope or heartbreak. One posts on X, "This is our Burkina, love and pain in one breath." The replies pour in, some praising Traoré's compassion, others slamming him for a country where mothers still have to beg. The moment even reaches beyond Burkina Faso's borders. In Mali and Niger, where military leaders echo Traoré's anti-Western rhetoric, people share the video as proof of a new African spirit. But in European newsrooms, the tone's different. Analysts dissect the clip, framing it as evidence of a cult of personality around a volatile leader. Back home, the woman's act becomes a Rorschach test. For some, it's a rallying cry to support Traoré's vision. For others, it's a gut check about a nation where survival feels like a daily miracle. As the days pass, the story grows legs, weaving itself into Burkina Faso's tapestry of struggle and defiance, with the woman and her child at its heart. Osnavnaya Chast, main content 4, The Woman's Echo, a community responds. In the days after the woman's kneel, Ouagadougou hums with her story, passed from mouth to mouth like a shared secret. The woman herself slips back into the rhythm of her life, her child trailing behind as she navigates the city's crowded markets. But she's no longer just another face. Stall vendors who once haggled with her now pause, offering a quiet nod or an extra handful of millet. A neighbor, an old man with a weathered smile, stops her to say her courage reminded him of his own mother, who once stood up to a village chief decades ago. Her act, so public and raw, has woven her into the city's heartbeat, even if she doesn't seek the attention. At a local school, Teachers overhear children reenacting the moment in the dusty courtyard, one playing Traoré, standing tall, while another kneels with a stick for a child. The scene becomes a kind of folklore, a story elders tell over steaming cups of tea, each version adding a new layer. Some say the woman was a widow, her husband lost to the violence tearing through the north. Others insist she was a farmer displaced by raids, her fields burned to ash. No one knows her truth, but everyone claims a piece of her story, using it to voice their own hopes or fears. Her kneel has become a canvas, painted with the colors of a community wrestling with its future. Traoré's burden, the weight of expectation for Ibrahim. Traoré, the moment lingers like a shadow. He's back in his office, maps and reports spread across a desk, the air thick with the scent of coffee and urgency. The woman's face, her tears, her child's wide eyes, stays with him, a reminder of the promises he's made to a nation on its knees. His aides report whispers from the streets. People want to know if he'll act, if he'll find her, if he'll prove he's more than speeches and red berets. Traoré listens, his jaw tight, knowing every move he makes is watched, judged, dissected. He scribbles a note, maybe about her, maybe about the thousands like her, and tucks it away. A week later, at a village meeting outside the capital, he speaks to a crowd of farmers and traders, their faces etched with the same weariness as the woman's. He talks of sovereignty, of rebuilding a Burkina Faso free from foreign chains, but his tone shifts when he mentions the mothers who carry our future. The crowd murmurs, sensing he's talking about her. He pledges more aid for displaced families, better security for villages, though he knows the jihadists' shadow looms large. Some in the crowd cheer, their fists raised. Others stand silent, waiting for action, not words. The woman's kneel has raised the stakes, turning her into a silent challenge Traoré can't ignore. A city divided, hope versus doubt. Ouagadougou's streets pulse with the tension her act has stirred. In a cramped tailor shop, women stitching bright fabrics argue over what it meant. One, a young mother herself, says the kneel was a prayer for all of them, a cry for Traoré to deliver. Another, older and sharp-tongued, scoffs, saying no leader can fix a country where markets run dry and gunfire echoes too close. Down the road, a group of motorbike drivers share cigarettes and stories, one claiming he saw the woman days later, looking no different, still struggling. "What's a kneel worth if nothing changes?" he mutters, flicking ash to the ground. Yet, in a small mosque tucked between concrete houses, a preacher weaves the moment into his sermon, calling it a sign of humility, a reminder that leaders and people need each other. His words resonate with some, who leave feeling lighter, but others walk away unconvinced, their faith in Traoré tested by empty stomachs and locked gates. The city splits along invisible lines. Those who see the woman's act as a spark of unity, proof Traoré's fight is theirs, and those who see it as a mirror of their pain, a plea unanswered. Her story, now a thread in the city's fabric, binds and divides, fueling a restless energy that hums beneath the surface. The woman's return, a quiet resilience. Weeks pass, and the woman who knelt before Traoré moves through Ouagadougou's relentless rhythm, her child still at her side. The moment that set the city ablaze feels distant now, like a dream half remembered, but its echoes shape her days. She's back to her routine, haggling for tomatoes in the market, washing clothes in a chipped basin, soothing her child's nightmares when the night grows too still. Yet something has shifted. A local aid worker, inspired by her public plea, tracks her down, offering a small basket of rice and oil, maybe even a lead on a job. It's not a miracle, but it's enough to lighten her step, to make her believe, if only for a moment, that her kneel wasn't swallowed by the void. She doesn't talk about that day, not to the curious neighbors or the women sharing a water pump, but when her child asks why they met the man in the red hat, she kneels again, this time in the privacy of their one-room home, and whispers a story of hope, of a leader who might still listen. She doesn't know if Traoré himself sent the aid, or if it was just the ripple of her act reaching someone who cared. Either way, she carries on. Her resilience a quiet defiance against the odds. Displacement, hunger, the ever-present threat of violence. Her story, once a spectacle, settles into something intimate. A mother's fight to keep her child's world from crumbling. Traoré's resolve. A leader pressed forward. For Ibrahim, Traoré, the woman's kneel becomes a silent passenger in his relentless mission. Late at night, in a dimly lit office cluttered with maps and empty coffee cups, he pores over reports of fresh attacks in the north, his brow furrowed. The memory of her tears, her child's small frame, gnaws at him, not as guilt, but as fuel. He's no stranger to pressure, but her act has sharpened it, turning every speech, every decision, into a test of whether he can deliver for the millions like her. He meets with local leaders, pushing for faster aid to displaced families, barking orders to secure more grain before prices spike again. His voice carries the same fire, but there's a new edge. A man aware that symbols like that kneel can lift or bury him. In a rare quiet moment, he visits a refugee camp on the city's outskirts, his convoy kicking up dust as curious children trail behind. He doesn't mention the woman, but when he kneels to talk to a girl clutching a ragged doll, the crowd notices. It's not a performance. He brushes off the aides trying to hurry him along, but it's a nod to the weight of that street encounter. The people watching whisper, maybe he gets it. Maybe he sees the mothers and children behind his grand talk of sovereignty. Yet, as he leaves, the camp's elders exchange glances, knowing promises are cheap when bullets still fly. Traoré drives back to the capital, the woman's image a reminder that his fight is as personal as it is political. The city's heartbeat. A story that endures. Ouagadougou carries the woman's kneel like a scar and a spark, a wound and a flame. In the city's sprawling neighborhoods, her story weaves into daily life. A street artist paints a mural on a crumbling wall. A woman and child, heads bowed with Traoré's silhouette in the background, red beret bold against a golden sun. Passers-by stop, some nodding in approval, others muttering that art won't fill empty bellies. At a night market, a griot strums a kora singing of a mother's courage and a leader's test, his voice drawing a small crowd who toss coins into his cap. The tale grows, not as fact, but as legend, a way for the city to make sense of its own fractured hopes. The divide remains, those who see Traoré as Burkina Faso's last chance, and those who see only chaos under his rule. In a dusty bar, men raise glasses to the woman, toasting her as a voice for the forgotten. Across town, a teacher scolds her students for idolizing the moment, warning that one kneel won't stop the violence or bring back lost homes. Yet, even the skeptics can't deny the story's pull. It's become a shared language, a way for Ouagadougou to grapple with its pride and pain. The woman, her child, and Traoré are no longer just themselves. They're a mirror, reflecting a city, a nation, a people refusing to break, even as the ground shifts beneath them. Months after the woman's kneel, Ouagadougou's restless pulse carries a new story, one that feels like a thunderclap. The woman, whose face once lit up a fleeting moment, steps into the light again, not by choice, but by fate. Word spreads through the city's markets and mosques. She's been found, not just by neighbors or aid workers, but by Traoré's own circle. In a small, unannounced gathering at a community center, she stands, her child at her side as a local official hands her a set of keys to a modest home, one of dozens built in a new settlement for displaced families. The crowd, small but buzzing, murmurs in awe. Traoré himself isn't there, but his name hangs in the air, tied to this quiet act that feels louder than any speech. The revelation hits like a spark in dry grass. The woman, once a symbol of desperation, now holds a concrete piece of hope, shelter, stability, a chance to rebuild. Whispers fly. Traoré's team tracked her down after that day, her kneel a catalyst that pushed them to act, to prove he's more than rhetoric. The child, clutching her mother's hand, looks at the keys with wide eyes as if sensing the weight of a new beginning. The woman's face, weathered but steady, breaks into a smile. Not for the crowd, but for her kid, for herself. This isn't a fairy tale. Life in Burkina Faso remains brutal, with violence and hunger still stalking the land. But this moment, this gesture, feels like a crack in the darkness, a glimpse of what might be possible. This single act, keys handed to a mother, ripples far beyond the community center's walls. In Ouagadougou, it's a lightning rod, rekindling the city's divided soul. For Traoré's supporters, it's proof he's listening, that the woman's kneel wasn't in vain. They gather in tea shops, voices loud with pride, saying this is what sets him apart. A leader who sees the powerless and acts. The story of the keys becomes a rallying cry, a tangible win in a country starved for good news. It fuels hope that Traoré's vision, his talk of sovereignty and justice, might actually touch the ground, one family at a time. But the skeptics, ever present, see a different truth. In bars and classrooms, they argue it's too little, too staged. A single home for one woman when millions are displaced, when villages still burn. They question if it's a calculated move, a way to polish Traoré's image while the jihadist threat grows and markets stay barren. The woman's new home, they say, is a drop in an ocean of need, and her story risks becoming a prop in a larger game. Yet, even they can't deny the power of her transformation, from a kneel in the dust to a roof over her child's head. It's a spark that forces everyone, believer or cynic, to confront the stakes. Can one act of compassion scale to save a nation, or is it a fleeting gesture in a storm too big to tame? The woman herself, standing in her new doorway as her child runs through the small room, doesn't care for the debates. For her, the keys are real, the walls are solid, and the future, though fragile, feels a little less heavy. Her kneel, born of instinct and desperation, has carved a path no one could have predicted, linking her fate to Traoré's legacy and Burkina Faso's restless heart. This climax isn't an end. It's a question, hanging in the air like dust after a storm. Can a single moment, a single act, rewrite a nation's story, or is it just a flicker in the long, hard fight ahead? So, there you have it, a woman's kneel in the dust of Ouagadougou, a child's wide eyes, and Ibrahim Traoré's quiet act of giving her a home, a spark that lit up Burkina Faso's hopes and doubts. This story isn't just about one mother or one leader, it's about a nation fighting to rise, one raw moment in the sun. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's keep unpacking these wild stories together. What do you think? Can a single act like this change a country, or is it just a drop in the bucket? Drop your thoughts below, and let's talk in the comments.